is writing this letter to one of the communities that we put together, and they find themselves now in a very difficult situation, being affected by heresy and discord and division. So St. John tells them, you need to remember how it was the beginning, when you used to love each other well. So, in other words, he's telling them, that's the only way you can guarantee that God is going to be on your side, by loving one another. Now, the most important of the three theological virtues is the virtue of charity. So, because where there is grace, there is always charity. There is no supernatural life if there is no grace. There is no charity. So when we commit sin, we still possess the virtues of faith and hope. But charity and sin cannot coexist at the same time. In fact, charity is the only virtue that will remain with us for eternity. Now, charity is the virtue that gives us the ability to love God above everything else and to love others for the love of God. And so charity is the one thing that gives value to everything that we do, regardless of how small or how big it might be. And so St. John says, we know that we have passed from death to life because we love the brethren. So the more we love, the more the life of grace increases in us, and the more we live in God, the more God remains with us. So it is love alone, or charity, which gives value to all things. So charity is the greatest and the first commandment on which the entire law and the prophets depend, as the gospel says. Now the question would be, why is it that why do we have to love God? Well, first of all, because God is lovable. So He is our Creator, our Father. Everything depends on Him. All the events of our lives are controlled by Him. So, how do we love God? Well, we love Him by fulfilling all His commandments, by conforming our will to God's will. And you know what are those sins that go against the love of God. The first one would be to believe in superstitions. So, idolatry is another sin against the love of God. And idolatry means, for example, this exaggerated concern for one's health, for one's comfort. So, sacrilege is another sin against God's love. And that simply means to not have respect for things or people that are sacred. And the last thing is simply lack of belief in God, or atheism, as we know. These four things are sins against the love of God. Now, everything is fine when it comes to loving God. Because, all the things we have received from Him. So it is easy for us to love Him. The things He has promised us. And lastly, He hasn't done anything wrong to us. So it is easy for us to love Him. Things change when we are asked by precept to love God and to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. So that's when everything changes. Because what are those people that we love? Well, we love those that are good to us. So So we find it easy and convenient to love them because we know that we can get something out of them. See? Now people say, well, when everybody else becomes a saint, I will become a saint. So Saint Josemaria Escriva says, when was the last time someone told you that in order for you to become a saint, you need two more? So we find it difficult to love our brothers and sisters. But the thing is that the love of God and the love of neighbor go together. You cannot have one without the other. So when was the last time you heard someone speaking ill of himself? So why don't, it should be easy for us not to speak ill of everybody else. See? And so, what are those things against charity towards a neighbor? Well, the first one would be being suspicious of them. Suspicion is a sin against charity. Then from suspicion we go into doubt, and then from doubt into judgment. And the thing is that we have no ability nor power to judge anyone. We don't know what's the intention that is behind or inside the person. Only God does that. See, so we sin against charity towards our neighbor by doing this three things. So how should we love them? How should we love our neighbor? Well, the gospel says, the greatest commandment says, you should love your God and your neighbor as yourself, as you love yourself. See, so how do we love ourselves then? We love ourselves well by procuring for ourselves everything that is good. And the greatest good that we have is God, His grace, His will. So the best thing you can do for someone else is that you become holy. You live holy lives. You live well. You follow God's will. You cannot even pretend to love someone else when you are being cruel to your own soul by living in sin. That is simply impossible. So the first soul you should be patient with and loving with is your own. So that's the first thing. The first thing we can do to love our neighbors. Secondly, how do we love ourselves? Well, the extent that we go to justify our sins and defects should be doing something with other people's defects. You remember St. Paul saying, charity covers a multitude of sins. So charity covers my sins, the love of God, and charity covers the sins of our neighbor. So where does charity towards our neighbor begin? It begins in the mind. Charity, St. Paul says, charity doesn't think evil of anyone. So we should not even think about allowing the defects and faults of our brothers to contaminate the way we see them, the way we think of them. The first manifestation of charity, when it is present in the soul, is courtesy towards other people. Having the ability to give them a good example, being magnanimous to them. Charity has to be manifested by works. It is easy for us to say, that we love God and that we love our neighbor. An entirely different thing is to prove it by doing good to other people. I mean, if I say, well, I don't do anything wrong to anyone, you're not doing anything. So we love them. We procure what is good for our souls. First, sanctifying grace, persevering in grace. Secondly, by forgiving the other person always. How many times? 70 times 7. See? That's the second thing. Third thing, not thinking ill of other people. And with the same care and preoccupation that we procure our salvation and our well-being, our spiritual well-being, we do the same thing with other people. So as we expect God to be merciful to us, not only at the end of our lives, but every day, we should be merciful to other people all the time. Those defects that we see in other people might be a lot smaller than our own, that we don't see. So we cannot say to other people, well, let me take the beam out of your eye. So the gospel says, worry about yours first. So let us be good to our souls. Let us do our best to keep our souls in grace, so that we may be able to have charity, love other people, give them a good example, and procure the same good things that we procure for ourselves. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.